That's her.
Hello.
Hello,
How's it
Heather.
going?
How are you?
We are doing well. How are you doing today?
Who am I talking to? Who are you?
Okay, that's a great question. So
Stud 1 and 2. Just 1 and 2.
nice. I'm Jason Juno,
I'm Corey Jeffries.
and our podcast is TriangleCast.
So what's the am I the triangle? Am I the top of the triangle? What is that?
You are the third corner of the triangle. You know, you're actually the first person to ever ask that. Originally, we were hoping nobody would ever question it, to tell you the truth. We found a shape. We found a domain name.
It was all Jason's idea.
Okay, got it. Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, so where are you guys? Where are you?
So this will actually also answer your question about the name. We're in Research Triangle Park, which is near Raleigh, North Carolina, Durham, that whole area.
Oh, okay, that makes a little more sense. Okay, got it.
And Heather, would you mind introducing yourself first, and then we can jump into some of that stuff as well. And I again appreciate you asking.
Yeah, no worries. Heather Havenwood. Are we recording now?
Absolutely. We are actually live via YouTube right now, and we are also recording.
Oh, great.
Surprise.
In the green room. Surprise, you're alive. Thank you. And the producer didn't tell me. My little producer in my ear is not telling me that we're live. Okay, so hi, my name is Heather Havenwood, and I'm now on the TriangleCast. I didn't know I was the top or the side or the left, but so I'm an entrepreneur. I live in Austin, Texas. And I've been in online marketing since 2001. Actually, my first business plan in online marketing was in 1999. And I have a master's degree in online marketing in 2010, one of the first to graduate from Full Sail University. So I built 3 businesses online from 0 to $1 million to 1.5 million at this point in my life. And I'm a renegade entrepreneur.
You also have several books out that you've authored.
I do. I have a book I called SexyBoss, How the Empowerment of Women is Changing the Rule Book for Money, Success, and Sex. And I also have a book out called Power Guesting, how people like, myself and you and other people can learn how to be a guest on shows, podcasts, radio. And I love doing this. I'm actually doing 4 today. So wow. I actually love doing this. I've been at over 300 now, 300 shows and counting. Everything's like from radio to live cast to podcast. Like it's, casting really is the kind of future. So that's a new book that just came out in just July 2017 called Power Guesting, which is super fun. And some other books about teaching men how to attract and talk to women as well.
Yeah, I noticed, and it looked like you had 2 or 3 of those.
I do.
About dating and that kind of subject matter.
And I'm a Cowboy fan, which I'm wearing my shirt live here. So, if you don't like the Cowboys, then move on. Just move on.
Corey was actually just saying before you logged in that he doesn't like the Cowboys. I'm not trying to create any kind of beef there.
It's in my family's DNA. Sorry.
Oh, is it? My grandmother watched the Cowboys. I remember watching my grandmother watching on Sunday, watching the Cowboys, and she's like, "Shh, I'm watching my boys." And her husband would come in and go, "I'm hungry. I need a sandwich." She's like, "I'm watching my boys. Get your own damn sandwich." That's how I grew up like, what's the boys? Like, it's the Cowboy.
Yep.
And we've been looking forward to having the chance to interview you all week. Really, really high level TriangleCast. The whole conceit of the show is that we both are dissecting entrepreneurship. The idea is not to work harder than everybody else. The idea is how can you bend the rules, break the rules, hack the rules so that you can get the greatest return on effort.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense. Yep.
So when we were looking at your profile and we see somebody that is an entrepreneur, has her own company, has several books, and as far as I can tell, like this is what you do full time now. Is that right?
It has been for years. Yeah, absolutely. I tried corporate America at one point. I lasted 3 months.
What kind of job did you have?
So I did corporate America back in the day when I first got, in college years. So 96, 95. And then I actually became I was in outside sales. So outside sales, B2B sales, SBC Global, big company, right? SBC Global, huge. And I worked for them and I was young. I was just still in college. I was going to school at night. I had to work my way through college. And I was in outside sales, B2B sales, right? So there's a turn, if anybody been B2B sales, you never be friends with the person next to you because they're going to leave in 3 months, like it's like just a rotating door, right? Telecommunications, anything like that, B2B sales is just a rotating door. So I was there for 4 years, which in that world was like long. And I became number 1 in the country. So I was in a small office, Fort Worth, Texas, which was considered small because Dallas was like the home ship, and then like you have LA, New York, and all that. And we were considered the small market. And I actually beat. I was number 1 in the country. So I was beating people in New York and LA and Chicago and Dallas. And that's why my book is called Beating the Big Boys, because it was my first experience of like, quote unquote, beating the big boys, which I didn't know what I was doing that. I just was kind of doing my thing. And you talk about rules. My challenge in life has always been playing by the rules. I really am not good at that. Like, the coloring of the lines. I'm like,
yeah. Well, yeah, because somebody else put those lines up there, right? So then they're already trying to tell you what to do.
Right. And so actually I got like what I call patted on the head. Congratulations, you're number 1 in the country. And then after I got my award, which I was hoping it would be this big pink Cadillac or something, but it was like one of those stupid things you get on your desk. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Okay. Y'all know what I'm talking about, which
a clear glass award with your name on it and maybe the amount of millions of dollars that you've sold.
Right.
Yeah.
It cost the company $5. You can't like throw me a caddy. Anyway. So and then what happened is I got my pat on the head, as I call it, my like congratulations with the CEO of the company, and then I got fired. And so I got fired.
I love how you just put that all together.
I did. I got fired. And it took me years to figure out why I got fired, because it makes sense to me, right? The rules were, you sell this product, here's your quota. If you hit the top, you're number 1, we love you. You make them a lot of money, they give you a little bit of money. Like life is great, so that's what I thought the rule was. Then there's all these other rules called internal politics and kissing the corporate booty's booty. And as my father said, in corporate America, you just look straight up and all you see is booties. I can't.
Did he use the word booties when he was describing it?
No, he used something else, but I'm trying to make this a family affair. So you just look up and you have all these booties to kiss, as he called it. And I'm not very good at that. Like, I didn't know that. I'm like, I didn't get that. I'm not very good at that. So I got fired. That's kind of what happened at the top of my career, as I call it. And so how I got into entrepreneurship, to answer your question, was that moment. And so all I knew at that moment, I know entrepreneurs have experienced this, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want that. It's like dating. It's like, I don't know what kind of girl or guy I want, but I just don't want that kind.
Gotcha.
That's all it was like for me. I didn't, because my whole world was around corporate America. My friends and my cousins and my sister, they're all in corporate America. So like,
that's all they speak.
Right. That's all they speak. So everyone was like, just go get another sales job. But I'm like, oh, but I don't want to build somebody else's business again. And they only give me
well, and you're just repeating the same cycle.
Yep.
And I've been there as well. And it can kill personal relationships. And yeah.
So the reason I say I lasted 3 months is because years and years later, when I actually moved to Austin back in 2009, I said, I got to get back in corporate America. I'm not doing well in entrepreneurship because I had some ups and downs. And so I went back to corporate America and I lasted 3 months, and it was probably the best 3 months ever because it was a sales job again. And I was actually called an internet marketing consultant, which was super weird for me because I'd already built 2 businesses online from $0 to $1 million. So I was like, this is nothing, you know what I mean? And I I laughed because my boss and my boss's boss, when they brought me in the third month, they both sat me down in this loving way. They were like, we like you, Heather. We do. And you're doing good and like your numbers. Like you don't follow the rules. And I'm like, I know, you guys, those rules suck. I mean, like, it don't make sense, and they're like, they're like, you need to go be an entrepreneur. That's exactly what they said to me. They're like, you just like, yeah, you need to be an entrepreneur. And
so you're that frustrating employee.
I was one. Yeah. So I said, you know what? Thank you. You're absolutely right. And actually, my boss's boss, so like the regional dude, he actually called me like 2 years later, like, hey, I'm going on my own. I need to talk to you. I need you to mentor me. It was super weird, right? So I'm like, oh, that's super cool. But I think that part of it being an entrepreneur is that you don't even see the rules.
Yes. Well, and even if the way this podcast was founded is Corey was already an entrepreneur, and I'm a decently successful sales guy. I've had similar experiences to what you're talking about, though I've not been number one in the country yet. So Corey thinks about everything. Yeah. Well, it's really true though. And if you look at it, that's not just your experience, and it's almost not even sales. It's like there's these very large organizations out there. They turn people into cogs in a greater machine, and the reward is, hey, 30 years later, you get a gold watch, right? That's the old joke.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, I'm not a very big fan of that.
So for me, Corey kept asking me the question of like, if you were to become an entrepreneur, what would it be? And I said, man, I love podcasts. I listen to them pretty much all day long. I love the sound of my own voice. And he said, so why don't you have one yet?
So here we are.
And here we are. We're about 40 episodes in, but you've got a podcast of your own, right?
I do a podcast of my own. It's called The Win with Heather Havenwood. And I love it. It's a lot of fun. Podcasting's great, but entrepreneurship, like I started my first podcast in 2013 called The SexyBoss Show. You can find it in the graveyard of iTunes. It's somewhere in the graveyard. It's really bad. The music, the intro is like,
that's some of Jason's music. Right?
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any friends in podcasting, so I just hired this guy in Tampa. Like, I still don't know who he is. And I'm like, it's called SexyBoss. Can you just create some intro music and an intro?
So he went late night Cinemax with it.
He was like, this is the SexyBoss. I wonder why people aren't listening to it. So the interviews are really great. There are some girlfriends of mine. They're actually really good. But it's like, and I had to keep it on there. I was like, this is too good to like let that go. But I thought, I failed at it, right? So I failed at it first. And then in 2015, and this is where I tell in my book, is in 2015, I had a friend of mine reach out to me and say, hey, why don't you come on my show? Because I want to pick your brain, basically. So I said, great. And he started picking my brain for about half an hour. And then all of a sudden I got about like a month later, I got a phone call from somebody who actually ended up hiring me for $5,000. So in my head, I was like, 30 minutes, $5,000, 30 minutes, $5,000. Right, let's put numbers together. Right. Let's do more of that. So that's when I really started to learn the art, I call it, of guesting, which is what I'm doing now. And there is an art to it because it's a storytelling art. I mean, you don't want to have someone on here who's just boring, who's like, my name is, and like, my name.
We've interviewed people like that before.
I know you have. They're really boring. And it's like, no one wants your resume. I mean, if you want my resume, go to LinkedIn, just like scroll, you'll see all my like stuff and all the people that recommended me. And that's awesome. But you're not listening today or watching to know my resume. You know what I mean? You want to know how I got here, what happened, how did that work, what are the failures, what are the successes, what's the sparkle why are you doing what you're doing? And so I think that's why people say, oh, you're a great guest, come onto my show, because we want to hear that engagement, and people do want to get engaged.
Well, the branding alone was enough to want to bring you on as a guest, because there's the kind of mystique that's wrapped up in that. And even you're talking about being in B2B sales. When did the SexyBoss brand start?
So SexyBoss brand started 2011. No, that's not right. 2012. And I was actually with a friend of mine, Joe Sugarman, who's the forward of the book. He's actually a major entrepreneur. He's amazing. He's a copywriter and it's just successful. He's in his 70s. He's just like a mentor, friend, father figure to me. And we're visiting him in Vegas, and he's at the soup and salad. That's his thing. He loves the soup and salad. And we go to any restaurant in Vegas. He's like, let's go to the soup and salad. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. So okay.
Right. And he's eating spinach. And I think through his spinach teeth, he's like, hey, you're like a sexy boss.
What a nice compliment.
And I was like, what's that? He's like, well, you're sexy, you're a woman, you own your femininity. And the boss part of you is you're owning your life. You're really rebuilding your life, and you own all areas of your life. And then he got up and went and got ice cream. And then I thought, oh, that's like, I get that. That should be my brand. And so I read the book. The first thing was a book. And so from that moment and creating that name and then creating the book title, within 90 days, I had my book written, created, published in an Audible within 90 days.
That's impressive. We just published one and it took us months, and that's with 2 authors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was probably the problem. I mean, 2 brains. Yeah. I mean, I've now my power guessing book, same thing. It took 2 months, 3 months max. I had a co-author on that one, so it did take a little longer on his side and editing. But I bust out books, and there's an art to that. So the point of all this is saying that podcasting has altered. Podcasting is changing. It's becoming the new books, and I think everyone needs to learn how to share their personal story, not their resume. And that goes for anything in life. I mean, as you know, in sales, people don't really want to do business with someone who just comes in with a PowerPoint presentation, right?
That's right.
It's called the H to H conversation, which I teach, which is people do business with humans, human to humans. Yes, we call it B2B sales or B2C sales, fine. But at the end of the day, humans are doing business with humans. Right.
And have you ever noticed too, and I think we share some perspectives here, by the way, like I've
that's good.
Throughout my sales career, I feel like the people I've seen succeed, they're not following the traditional metrics and things like that are being handed to them by middle management, number one. Number two, anybody I've known, and you see this in politicians all the time, anybody that you see where they're just like so dialed in, so professional, they've got a lot of skeletons in that closet, and they come out eventually, one way or another.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, all my friends are entrepreneurs at this point. The only person in my life that is in corporate world is my sister. So, and she's kind of a mid-entrepreneur herself. So, I mean, everyone in my life is an entrepreneur, and the world of like middle management. And I have a hard time relating to that because it's just me, and I'm responsible for everything. If something screws up in my business, it's on me. There's no one I can let go. Hey, it's your fault,
Yeah. And so with the podcasting, the books, the consulting, where does most of your revenue come from?
I'm a marketing coach.
Okay.
I'm a marketing coach. So people come to me who already have businesses, or they want to get into speaking business, authorship, publishing. They want to say, I want to write a book. I want to be a speaker. I want to start a podcast. I help people launch podcasts. I'm a marketing coach. I just got off the phone last week with a deep dive. I do these deep dives with clients. This person's her business is 7 figures, and basically we're re-messaging her brand right now. We're in the conversation of what does that look like, and upgrading her brand and what's next, because there's old words, like words called leadership. Those are what I call old school words. And there's these new things called diversity. There are these new words. And so just like in every business, speaking business, entrepreneurship, there's trends, there's trending things, people like diversity and how do you deal with millennials, and then there's this other generation. These are things that companies now are dealing with. What are the new challenges? So that's constantly altering. And so as a speaker and author and coach, you have to be aware of that. But ultimately, I make my money from working with people one-on-one or businesses. I have a Hollywood producer. I have a guy who's a major real estate investor in Alaska. These people are entrepreneurs, and I don't know about you, but in your book, but for me, as soon as I wrote my book and I had a copywriter help me, I then had to get a third-party editor, because we don't see our own mistakes. Like, I don't see my own typos. I don't see that I skipped 3 words. I don't see that when you're writing. You have to have a third-party entity who's unattached to it to look at it and edit, right? But entrepreneurs need that too, because when we see our own work, we're like, oh, it's fine. Why is it not working? You have to have that third-party person come in and go, let me show you what you're not seeing, right? It's not because they're stupid. It's called just being human. So that's what I do is I come in, I'm an entrepreneur, marketing and sales coach specifically.
From a marketing standpoint, so again, like the spirit of TriangleCast is bending the rules, right? Yeah. So from a marketing standpoint, us being a podcast, if you look at that, like from an 80-20 perspective, what's the most important thing that we could be doing to be drawing attention to the podcast other than having on phenomenal guests?
It's a great point. I think the number one thing is pulling out the story. It's pulling out the story of what of great guests are one thing. Like I've had some really big guests on my show and they weren't the best guests just because they have like a big New York Times bestseller or they're really successful at what they do. Doesn't mean they were a great guest, right? And so part of that is being a great host is pulling the story out. I mean, Oprah, the ultimate, right? The ultimate interviewer of all times, and Barbara Walters. Wawa. She's awesome.
Bob Wawa.
Right. It wasn't that her guests were spectacular. I mean, some were, right? They're controversial. What is that she had this ability to pull the story out and pull that story out. Now, for me as a guest, I'm pretty good at just giving it to you. Like you guys don't have to do as much work. But
thank you.
You're welcome. But most guests don't because they don't know how to share their story. It's like, I don't know. Like, when you say share your story, I'm very succinct on what that is because I've studied storytelling. Most people like, oh, well, in 1999, I started with the Army. Like, next thing you know, you're there for like half an hour. So I think part of being a good host is understanding how to pull that story out and how to interview, and that's a really, it's an art. It's an art. I've studied a lot of storytelling, but recently, just in the last couple of months, I've been actually studying Oprah on how she interviewed, because one of the things that she said, I saw in a video in the last year with her that I thought, wow, I never really got that. She's like, I've interviewed over 30,000 people. Who else in the world's done that? Like, that's her claim. Now, we all see her as a certain view, but in her world, her claim is like, I've interviewed more people on the planet than anyone ever. Right. And so there is a huge claim there of like, wow, she's really been with and interviewed more people than anyone on the planet. And that's incredible. And therefore she's an artist. She's a master. So that's what I would say about promoting your show, because that's what happened to her. It's that she became less a talk host and more of someone who pulled stories out.
That's interesting. And almost there's an elevation that comes along with that. Then people know her to be this fantastic interviewer, and they know that when they go on there that they're going to have something pulled out of them.
Yeah, I think, the thing I liked about her specifically, and even any shows, is that they weren't like right now. I mean, if you go on any talk shows like Jimmy Kimmel and blah, 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 we all know they're there to promote their movie.
Yep.
Promote their political whatever. They're already famous. Jimmy Kimmel's not going to have someone who's like, and your name is what? You're not going to get there. But Oprah was willing to have those people. She was willing to like, okay, you're kind of like a new, but like, I like your message. What are you to pull? And then she would make them famous, quote unquote, as we call it. So that's why it was always this big thing. That's the art that's missing. And I think it's happening in podcasting. Everyone's like, well, I want to be on the biggest podcast, or I'm amazing. I should be on every podcast. It's like, maybe. I'd rather be on a show that just got started that has a great host that pulls the story out, or we really engage, than what I call the top shows that are out there.
We covered this in the book a little bit, which is called Bend, Break, Hack: Podcasting Without Permission. It's available on Amazon. There's a chapter in there.
I have a copy. Sounds cool.
We'll make sure you get a copy after the show.
Thank you.
For sure. So there's a chapter in there, though, where I talk about a guy named Cal Fussman. And he, nobody really knows who he is, but he, for Esquire, interviewed like Muhammad Ali, Gorbachev, a lot of just different famous people, and then some even more like B-list celebrities. And it was most polarizing for me when I found myself captivated by an interview with Ted Danson. Because I don't care anything at all about Ted Danson, but I'm reading this 3-page interview and I'm riveted by it because the questions were so good. I will send you a link to an interview.
Danson. Take me back, man.
Right. So, but there's an interview done between Tim Ferriss, who you might know, 4 Hour Work Week, the Tim Ferriss Show.
Yeah.
He has an interview with Cal Fussman, and it's in podcast format. The thing lasted for 3 straight hours. And it is just like, it's almost like a master's class in interviewing and engagement.
Where is that? Make sure. I'm interested in that. I mean, I know Tim Ferriss, but is in his master classes or what?
Well, it's on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and it's one from maybe about a year ago where he interviews Cal Fussman. I'll make sure I send you a link.
Yeah, send me that.
It's just
Why won't you
outstanding.
ask questions. You're just like hanging out, looking at me.
That's normally what I do.
Oh, that's what you
Jason,
do. Like,
Jason's a questions guy.
Yeah, Corey just laughs at my jokes on occasion, and no, I mean Corey. It's interesting. He's I've referred to him oftentimes on the show as just being unflappable. Like the guy really doesn't ever get too up or down or overexcited or aggravated or anything like that.
you're just like,
Yeah, right there in the middle.
Yeah. Whereas I've got more of like the manic thing going on. I think there's like 5 straight episodes from earlier in this year where I'm just talking about my own burnout for like an hour at a time. And Corey doesn't even know what burnout is.
So I guess a little background on me. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I have a bounce house business here in North Carolina. So I do I rent inflatables for kids. And so Jason was intrigued by the process that I use as far as like delegating phone calls and delegating actual
Can I
work.
unpack that for a moment?
Yes, you can.
So now he's talking and I interrupt him. See, but the reason why it was fascinating is he had this bounce house business, and I'm like, okay, that's great. It sounds like a lot of labor. To which he replies, no, I don't do any work. I just get texts that tell me when money goes in my bank account. So he has somebody else that drops these couple bounce houses that he owns, drops them off at the client site, cleans them off, inflates them, deflates them, etc. Has somebody else virtually handling the sales, has everything kept in a storage facility. And so all he does is then take what's left over from that and uses it to like pay for his upcoming wedding and some trips and stuff he's going on.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's pretty cool. And then meanwhile, he kept picking my brain about sales. And
that's why we're here.
yeah, 40 episodes later, here we are.
here we are. Okay, got it. Okay, that's clear. Cool. Well, awesome. Bounce House Stud. All right, that's what your name is now.
Bounce House Stud.
I prefer King.
Bounce House King.
Oh, stud.
I can leave. I can just go. There's like a coffee machine or something. I can let you two talk.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's really great. That's awesome.
So you've published quite a few books. Do you have any advice on the publishing? Well, I'll rewind for a moment. A lot of the people that listen to us, they are either entrepreneurs, people that have a side hustle, or people that are interested in starting their own podcast. That
side hustle.
Could you say that one more time?
What's a side hustle? What are you describing as a side hustle?
It would be anybody that already has
This
a full-time
podcast.
job and then they're putting in like a few hours here and there now to get some extra income.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, got it. That's who's listening.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Clear. Woohoo.
So we've had on several different authors. We've had on a few people that, one of them's a realtor, and then meanwhile, he's only a realtor because that allows him to do a bunch of other stuff like maintain a clothing brand and some other stuff. We had one guy on that quit his job at Ernst & Young, high-level finance, to go sell ice cream because he couldn't get the dream out of his head.
I love it.
So eventually he just picked up, and that's Two Roosters ice cream. They're growing in popularity right now. They haven't quite gone national yet, but I bet you $20 right here. Anybody listening, I bet you $20 that they're going to go national by probably mid 2018.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. What's the brand name?
It's Two Roosters ice cream.
Two Roosters. Okay.
Yep, that's a great story behind it too.
And so, but all that being said, what is your advice on the publishing side? You've had all these books out there. Some of them have probably been more or less popular. What would you tell somebody who either has got the book in their head and can't get it out, or they've just published and they're trying to get it more traction?
So there's a couple things. One is, everyone's got a book inside them, I think. I'm not a fan of paying someone $10, $15, $20, $30,000 to do that. I mean, I know you have been, at least I have been. It was this morning. I was pitched for that. Like, oh, you have a book inside you. We'll do it for you for $15,000 or something. I'm not a fan of that because it's not needed nowadays. I mean, it's just not with Amazon and
Go direct to consumer.
You just go direct to consumer. You don't need that, and you can hire your own copywriter for you. If you do, and go to Odesk or something. You don't have to have all that. I didn't. My first book was like 120 pages. I had a friend of mine interview me for an hour and a half. I transcribed that. I had a third person edit it, someone else to look at the work and make it sound cool, sound better, not so conversational. And had somebody do a a cover, and then there's a book, right? So you don't have to have this big drawn out process. I know some people right now, like I know a friend right now, she's pitching her book and literary agent, and nowadays it's just changed. The business has changed. The days that people like, here's $1 million to go write your book. It happens. It happens. It's just not as much as you think, Hillary Clinton maybe got it or something, or someone
Oprah.
Oprah probably does too. I mean, she if you notice, Oprah doesn't have a lot of books. It's not her thing. She'd rather interview people with books. So the business is altering and the business is changing. But what I always tell people of books, for me, books are just a lead gen. People buy my book for whatever, $4.99 or $6.99, or sometimes I put them on sale for 99 cents, because I want them to hear me and read it and kind of get me, and then from there potentially work with me. I mean, it's all lead capture. I know that for myself, the hardest part, and this always surprises people, I'm on Audible. My book Sexy Boss is on Audible, and it's one of my most proud things, because it was one of the hardest damn things I've ever done. And you're like, what's so hard about reading a book? Okay, so anybody who's a voiceover, you'd be like, it's challenging, right?
Okay.
You have to read the book as is, every single word, because it's an audiobook. And not only do you have to not sound like you're dull as hell, right, when you're reading every single word, then you have to add emphasis to it. And then you have a producer in your ear that he's reading the script with you. And if you miss a word, go do it again, and like yell at you. You're like, you gotta like go back and do. So then on top of that, it's your own, for me, it was my own personal story. So I'm reading my own story going, oh, I should change that. I should totally edit that out.
Why?
Because it's your own story. It's personal. It's way more different than if you write a book and I'm a voiceover, I have no attachment to it.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Right? It's a script. If it's your own personal story, there's an attachment to it. And there's like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't say that. Or maybe you feel emotion. And so it's a very different kind. So it took me 6 weeks to do my audiobook. I could only go in for an hour and a half, 2 hours max, once a week max. I would do it in the middle of the day and I come home and pass out because it was so exhausting. Probably the most exhausting thing I ever did. Like you and I having a conversation, this is not exhausting for me.
Yeah.
But put me in a studio.
But you got to focus.
You got this guy yelling at you and you have to read every single word like this and add the emphasis and add this and this.
Well, and the emotional drain that comes along with like speaking some of these truths out loud that you might not have ever actually said out loud before, right?
Yeah. So it's a combination. So it's very personal to me. So when people ask me, should I do my own audiobook? I go, if it's your personal story, yes. If it's like a novel or something, there's no reason. You can just hire that out. And then I did something great. I actually bought Tony Robbins' newest book, the financial one that I'm going blank on it. I bought his audiobook, and how he did it, which was brilliant. Because I thought to myself when I bought the audiobook, I'm like, there's no way in hell that Tony Robbins is going to read his own book. I mean, he's just all over the place. It's not like that's not his thing, right? But what he did was brilliant. And I'm sharing it with you because I think there's somebody on the maybe listening going, oh, this would work for me. So he hired a voiceover to read every single word. Okay. And then at the end of the chapter, like chapter 1, chapter 2, they would what I call put just the mic on Tony. Okay, go, chapter 1, here's what you wrote, and then just like go. And he his thing. His thing, just and then they did that for every chapter. So you still got Tony in the book, and then you got the content, right? And if I had to do another book, which I'm already looking at my next book, I'll probably do that. I'll hire the voiceover to read every single word, and then I will just at the end of the chapter kind of had like a personal engagement with the audience.
If your next book is like Sexy Boss 2 or something like that, Corey and I can do the voiceover for free. Could you imagine like he and I reading our stories about being a sexy boss?
That would be awesome.
I think so. We'll do like a pilot chapter or 2 for you just as like a promo thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So I'm glad we are still talking about the book side of things, because at some point, so, you get this, you're having lunch, you get this idea in your head, like, okay, Sexy Boss, I could work with that. There's that marketing part of you that's like, okay, I could brand that. I can do this. I can do that. Did you face skepticism when you were sharing that as a title and as a concept with other people?
I still do. I had someone I'm talking to yesterday who were looking at working together, and he said, I'm concerned because your email has the word Sexy Boss ink in it, and I'm concerned my wife is going to have an issue with it.
Well,
he should probably tell her ahead of time.
I'm like, well, no, we were just, my email's that. So like, that's how you have to schedule a call with me. This is not that big of a deal,
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, well, let me explain to you what that means. Sexy boss means, owning, isn't your woman pretty, sexy to you? Is she not the boss of your life? Probably the boss of your life. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what sexy boss is. Like anything other than that is all social construct.
Yeah.
But when I first came out with the book, I still have people like either they love it or they hate it. It's like it's a very controversial thing. Either like, I can't talk to you because I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah. I think people like shaming each other for one, and for some reason or another, people really like shaming women. And
did you have a target audience for the book when you wrote it, or?
No, it was my personal story. I didn't think like that with this book. I didn't think, obviously it's my personal story, and obviously it's to women, but that wasn't a marketing book for me. It was just my brand book for me. So, I think one of the things, it's not that shaming women, it's just that there's still this old view of sex doesn't belong in the boardroom. And I call BS on that. Okay. Because we all love a man that is charismatic and dapper and looks like 007. And he walks in the room and he's like,
the man.
Right. And we're like, that guy's hot or charismatic and he's amazing. I want to be near him. A woman who does that, who's all dapper, now we call her a B with an itch. It's like, what the hell's that? No, she's a sexy boss. Chapter 7 of Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. The title of that chapter is Sex Transmutation.
Yep.
There's a reason. My whole book is about the fact that sex transmutation, that was a book that was written in the 30s, was geared towards men. And I just basically said, I'm just rewriting the chapter. And now it's geared towards women. And then it's called a sexy boss. And the boss part is owning all its areas of your life. And sexy is the charismatic energy that is actually taught in the freaking book. This is not new, but people act like it's all this drama. It's like, no, that's why people watch Fox News. They got hot chicks that are smart.
Is that why people watch Fox News?
One of them, they're smoking hot. They got great legs. I think they're great. They got great boobs. They got great makeup. And they're like smart as heck. I would rather watch those women all day long than a boring dude who's like, come on, it's not fun to watch. So, right? It's called Marketing 101.
So there's a truth to it that people are uncomfortable with.
They choose to be uncomfortable with it. I'm not uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you should be, and I wouldn't imagine that you would be. And we're not very nice. Anybody that's listening right now, Heather's holding up a copy of the book that they can find on Amazon.
Yeah. Sexy Boss is, but the book I'm holding up is Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, okay. I missed it.
Old school, right? So, but the number one most unread chapter is that chapter.
That's a book that brought Corey and I. Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That chapter, people don't read it. The reason they don't read it because they see sex transmutation. It's kind of an odd name, and they literally skip it.
I like the chapter.
That was a book that we both read, and before we even were talking about starting a podcast, we were talking about that and 4-Hour Workweek. And that chapter, if I recall, he was talking about, many different things, but part of it was when one of the people he interviewed had a secretary that he was attracted to. And then because of that, he found he was more energetic and he was more trying to close deals and kind of drawing from that energy.
Trying to be the man.
If I recall.
That particular example wasn't in the original. I don't know that.
I mean, they have so many different versions of it now.
Yeah, there's different versions. So who knows? But this mystery of sex transmutations, basically the relationship of achievement to highly developed sex natures. Basically, what that means is charismatic energy. It's just an energy conversation. So anyway, that's what Sexy Boss is about, and my book is about, and that's what I talk to entrepreneurs about. Is that they feel like they have to compartmentalize their body and their life and their fitness, but actually it's the combination. And that's what I think entrepreneurs are charismatic and are sexy, is when they combine all of those together, then you have a really powerful person.
I'm going to jump off topic here for a second, jump back on the book. So let me ask you this question. So most people, when they write a book, it's kind of like the highlight. It's like, hey, we put out this book. I finally did it. What do you suggest as far as what comes after? So you said you use your book as a lead generator. Should people be looking to do webinars? Should they be looking to sell courses? Like, what should they be looking to do after the book comes out? Because it's kind of like a stalemate. You sell a few copies and then sales just decrease or disappear. And so I've seen it, on multiple occasions. What would you suggest as far as
things with books? I mean, so first off, my book, Sexy Boss, I didn't come from that marketing and business perspective. I just wanted to get my story out. And that came from the intention that if one person bought the book, it was a success. I had no idea it would cause controversy and got me to where I'm at. I mean, I just didn't. That was not the intention. The power guesting book, that's obviously a business book with an intention of business, and I think it's a need in the marketplace. It's a very different intention. So there's no particular answer for that, really, other than the fact of what's your current business model. What's your current funnel and what's your current business model? If the book is designed to lead people into your funnel, then great. Obviously that makes sense. And then the structure, and this is literally what I deal with clients. I look at what's going to be the best structure for you. What are the best products for you? What are the best programs for you? Is it going to be seminars? Is it going to be webinars? Is it going to be podcasting? Is it going to be courses online? I mean, I don't know. It depends on the person. There's no right answer, So either way, you drive down the road and either a Honda or a Toyota or a Jaguar or Lexus, you're all going down maybe the same street, the same direction. Which one's better off? It just depends. So that's the way you go into business models. And that's what I coach people on, is the business model part of it. How does the book or the podcast serve the business model? Okay. So it's not a straight answer.
Well, and it's anybody that is out there that is thinking of writing a book, I would just 100% suggest to do it, because even our book has gotten a little bit of traction here and there, but ever since we published that, we've had more people request to come on the podcast. We've had, what was that?
The business card.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a business card. For me, I had books before, but it was a particular reason for the funnel. And then the Sexy Boss, like I said, came out it was a personal branding story of how I went from $0 to $1 million, bankrupt, and then back up, right? So it's this personal story of how I overcame all of that as a woman, as an entrepreneur, by myself. Like, so what was that story? And it was me kind of puking out what really happened, versus this business intention, So I think it goes back to what it is you're trying to create. I think that everyone should create a book if it serves them. The problem is people think that the book is the end all. The book is not the end all. It's just a starting point.
Mm-hmm. They also think it's like a if you write it, they will come kind of situation. Like they're going to publish it and then suddenly they're going to be a New York Times bestseller.
No. I love the movie show Ballers. Y'all watch this show Ballers?
With The Rock.
With Rock?
I have not watched it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I love The Rock. He's great. But one of the taglines of the show is if you build it, they will come. And I hate that. I'm like, that's a worse tagline because it's re-emphasizing BS, the non-truth. That's not true. Now in some cases, of course, maybe build an NFL stadium. Fine. Okay, fine. But I mean, in general, in business and life, that's not true. generally speaking, right? So I think it's a bad thing to say, but I love ballers. I loved Rock. I mean, Rock, if you're listening, like, I love you.
Okay, so we will let Dwayne The Rock Johnson know. He's actually, it's funny you mentioned that because we're bringing him on. So Dwayne, come on out and come meet Heather. And no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So cute. Like, so cute. We're like little cheeks. He's so adorable. Freaking love him. Watch that show for him. If he left, I'd be like,
that's it.
Listen, I've had to watch Moana. I've got a 1-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. I've had to watch Moana 120 times, no exaggeration at this point. And
I don't know what Moana is.
I am happy for you. I'm happier for you.
I'm totally okay with that. I'll probably Google it later, but I have a feeling it's probably a Disney movie because I don't know.
With The Rock in it. Yeah.
Oh, now she'll watch it.
You don't.
The adult version of The Rock, where he's banging girls and like having fun in Vegas and getting all jacked up. I watched the adult version of The Rock and the Ballers, having some fun. He's in strip clubs, he's hanging out with cool chicks. So that's because I don't have kids.
Yeah. What about on the writing side of things? And I'm sorry if I'm like belaboring the publishing side of stuff. Like, you're multiple books. Do you have a method? Do you have some sort of like discipline? Do you have some way of getting in the zone to actually sit down and get this stuff out?
I do. I have a particular method. I teach that to my clients because it is very specific and it does get it done. So I can't just like share everything here, but it's a particular method that I've been able to write all my books in. And like I said, write them, like get them out within 30 days. So I wrote Sexy Boss, like got all the content out within 30 days. And then I had it edited, and then that piece that took another 60 days with all that pieces and different people. So getting the book out is actually not as hard as people think. It's just not. I'm not a big believer though. And then you open Word doc and it's blank. I mean, no one can create from that. That's just really, really hard.
Maybe that's our problem. That's where we started from.
Yeah, bad idea.
You might be our 4th guest that's in more of the marketing realm.
Okay.
And we had on a gentleman, Matthew Royce, he runs knowledgeenthusiast.com.
Okay.
And but one of the things he mentioned is that with like the 40 or so hours of audio content we already have, there's a bunch of different ways we can spin that. There's a bunch of different ways we can take that.
It's called repurposing. Correct.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to, I don't want you to have to give out any like free advice or anything like that at all. But I'm almost thinking like, even by you saying that and him as a marketing person, I'm starting to think like that's one way we can use some of our content to create more stuff, as opposed to, like you said, the blank Word doc, which is almost oppressive to look at.
It's very oppressive. I mean, there's no way I would have done. All my books were created the same way, with the same structure, with the same. And I've spent thousands of dollars of going to an event. It was like 3-day event about this whole process. And so that's why I just don't like give it out. Right. So
that's fair.
Yeah. I pay for it. So, but I mean, it's very distinct. There's a couple things I'll say. One, you don't stare at a blank Word doc. 2, yes, if you want to write a book that has a lead gen for your business, great. But at the same time, you want to make sure you're not what I call trying to get the book into a tiny little box. You actually want to have it kind of flow from you. If not, people won't read it. And the other thing I always say is try to keep the book evergreen. As much as possible.
And we have about 5 or so minutes left, maybe slightly longer.
Are people on? Like, is there like a group chat, or is it just like one of those, like it goes later?
So this right now, it's out on YouTube live. I can't tell if a bunch of people are watching it now or not.
0 viewers.
Yeah, as far as we can tell. But the idea is that this can then be this can be edited right within YouTube. So we can add all like the branding stuff. We can edit out anything that you might want us to edit out. And then it can also be turned into an MP3. And then we add the theme music and everything for the podcast that's going to be coming out this Sunday.
Don't say that no one's watching. It's horrible. Just say that. Edit that out.
Well, we can't on the Google Hangouts side, we can't tell if anybody's watching. On the YouTube side, I'm not sure. But as far as like in this
It's the
chat
middle
room,
of
so
the
to speak,
day. I mean, people should probably be working.
well, so should we in some ways, right?
Right. No worries. It's fine. I just was curious how that was going. Well, cool. Yeah, no, yeah, we have 5 minutes left. Got it. So this is going to be on your on podcast and
Yeah,
Yep.
which is just TriangleCast on iTunes, Google Play, that sort of thing. It's going to be on our YouTube channel.
I'd like to give people a gift if you don't mind.
Please.
Sure.
Okay, so if you're interested in my audiobook, like I told you, it's one of the hardest things I ever did. I have 3, I'm giving away 3 chapters of the audiobook. So 3 free chapters of my audiobook, Sexy Boss. So you can kind of get a feel for that. You could just pick up your smartphone and text the word sexy to 72,000. So you text the word sexy to 72,000. 72000, and then what happens is you'll get some autoresponders and basically get the content right there on your phone, or you can go to sexybossinc.com to get the same thing. And if you're in the United States, it works. If you're not, then it doesn't work, which I have no idea why. But that's my gift. And honestly, if people are interested in having a conversation with me about what does it look like to write your book, what does it look like to start a podcast, launch a podcast, or marketing coaching, I'd love to have a conversation with them. And they can go to coachwithheather.com. Just get on the phone with me, schedule a time with me, and have a conversation and see how we can, help build their businesses. So
That's a good segue into one of the other questions I had for you as well. I had watched a video where you were talking about how somebody would define success. And for like, a lot of the conversations Corey and I have had, like, I'm not necessarily interested in making like $5 million. I more want freedom. I want to be able to do whatever I want and go wherever I want to go. And some of that has to do with finances, but some of it also has to do with like not spending a bunch of money on stuff I don't need, right? What is your definition of success?
I like money. I like money. But and true freedom is the presence of alignment. So I work a lot, but that's freedom for me. I choose to. There's no one behind me right now other than my dog who might walk in, who's telling me I need to work. I enjoy it. I like it. I like to make money. You know what I mean? So I enjoy money. I like money. I love money. It's fun. It makes my life happy. I have a nice Lexus. I like Lexus. So true freedom is a presence of alignment. And I think that part of being an entrepreneur is understanding what that alignment is for you, whatever that is.
I like that. So it's not like the draining kind of like getting bossed around work. It's that self-actualization of like right now what you're doing is something that you enjoy, even though it's work.
Yeah. It's just what I do. It's more like, it's like what I do, and talk to an Olympian or an athlete and go, how many, hours did you spend on the field today? If an NFL player, and he'd be like 10 or whatever. Like, well, was it work for you? Well, yeah, he's tired, but was it work? I guess so. Technically, you could say it was, but it's what he does. It's who he is. It's what he does. So it's a very different kind of piece. I am someone that does not like the whole world of the whole kind of concept or theory of go after your passion and do what you love. It's work. Being an entrepreneur is way more. If you don't like work, do not be an entrepreneur. Like, stop, just go turn around. It's way more work. I work way more now than I ever did in corporate world. Ever. So,
but you enjoy what you're doing more.
It's a different kind of experience because it's something I'm building.
Yeah. There was it was regarding Tim Ferriss. Like somebody had once said that, he talks about the 4-hour work week. Well, the 4 hours of work is the part that he doesn't want to be doing. That's the part that he's not enjoying, where all the other stuff is, while it could be labor, it's something that it's re-energizing for you and it's enjoyable for you and it's helping you. I'm babbling.
Yeah, I don't really agree with Tim there. It's my view.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the book either. So there you go.
Wow.
I'm not. Yeah.
How come?
I'm just not. I'm not a fan of the message. I'm not a fan of the content. I've read it. It's just not. It's just me. It's just where I come from. So I think it creates a false sense of security and insecurity of the truth of entrepreneurship.
Interesting. So it's almost like keeping away from the truth of like the grind that is needed to make something successful.
You talk to someone I know people that are really just truly successful in business. You tell them, do you work 4 hours a week? No. Talk to Marcus Loomis of The Profit. And I bet you if you said to him, do you really believe in the 4-hour work week? He'd be like, no. I mean, if you watch him, I like him a lot. I believe in how he thinks. And I don't know if you watch him, but I love how he gets into businesses and he'll get the apron on. He's like, let's go. He's like, we're getting in there. Like he gets in there, and then what happens is he bumps up against business owners who are like, oh no, I don't like serve the ice cream. Like that's he's like, what are you talking about? You got to get in the business and work. And that's where he there's a few episodes like that he finds that these business owners just want to be business owners. They don't necessarily want to do the work. Now, there's systems and structures you can create at a certain point, like you have, to go, okay, I don't have to do it now. I know the system. I find the right people so that I don't have to. However, at any moment, if something breaks, you could step in, something fix, So I think that's why I don't.
Yeah, I've seen him. I've actually seen our guy here do that as well. Like he suddenly something happens and he's got to strap a trailer on the back of his car and go get a bounce house. I've seen him do that once or twice.
That's what you have to do. Now he's set up structures now, so it works less. That's smart. But if something happened, he could step in and go, got it. I'll still got it handled. I'll handle this one. Got it. No problem. We'll fix the next day. So that's what I mean by that. I think it creates a false sense of reality.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the honesty. We always like to get people's more honest opinions on things.
Everyone loves Tim Ferriss, but
yeah. Well, we actually have him as a guest next week, so we'll just
fine, no problem. He probably doesn't like sexy bosses, so it's fine. It's fine.
Who doesn't like sexy bosses in this scheme of things?
I'm allowed to have my own view, and I think that part of what's happening now is for me as an entrepreneur. I mean, if you asked me that question 4 years ago, I probably just went with it. I've been like, oh yeah, Tim's great, and Tim as a person is great. I just don't believe in the philosophy of that book.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't believe in it because I know people that own supplement companies. I've owned a supplement company because that's the case example. And I promise you, I can call them right now and say, "Did you only work 4 hours this week?" And they're like, "No."
Yeah.
Crazy.
Heather, where can people follow you other than sexybossinc.com? Do you have a Twitter account?
Yeah. Oh, HeatherHavenwood.com. But my Twitter is Havenwood.
Okay.
And my Facebook is Heather Havenwood. I'm the only one, right? So.
Okay. So we will make sure that we have all of that stuff, including the gift that you're giving out. We're going to make sure all of that stuff's in the show notes.
Thank you.
And again, this episode's going to go live this upcoming Sunday.
Awesome. Okay.
And we'll make sure we keep you aware of all that stuff. And we really.
Social.
Oh, sorry. One more time.
I'll share it on my social as soon as it's live.
Hey, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. And anybody out there that is listening, you can always find us on TriangleCast.com, Twitter, Facebook,
Instagram,
TriangleCast. And Heather Havenwood, we appreciate you coming on so much. Is there anything else that you want to say to the listeners of TriangleCast?
Don't let anyone dull your sparkle.
Love it. Well, thank you very much. Corey, or should I call you Bounce House Stud?
Stud.
Don't let anybody fill your sparkle. Well, this is Jason Juneau and Bounce House Stud with TriangleCast.
Yep.
And Heather, we will talk to you again soon, we hope.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.